This is mostly our fireside chat. I truly hope that you all enjoyed the first portion of our segment, and now we will begin the second portion, the open forum and community discussion. We have on stage right now 3 important individuals who will give you brief information about these families and how these core families saw themselves within the community. Starting from my left to right. First, we'll have Mr. Forrest Hazel. Forrest Hazel has a Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology and a Master's in Public Health. Both degrees are from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Since 1982, he has worked researching the history of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation, which assisted the tribe in obtaining North Carolina state recognition in 2002. He has also worked on the history of various other Native communities in North Carolina, including the Coharie, the Meherrin, Waccamaw-Siouan, and Lumbee. He serves today as the Occaneechi tribe's representative on the North Carolina American Indian Heritage Commission, where he works primarily with the history of public schools in American Indian communities statewide. He has also successfully submitted over half a dozen successful applications for North Carolina historical highway markers dealing with a variety of topics ranging from American Indians, historic mining, and Andre the Giant. He presently lives in Mebane, North Carolina. Ms. Ruby Sapp Leach. Ruby Sapp Leach was born in 1934 here in Guilford County, North Carolina. Ruby graduated from Dudley High School, which is located here in the city of Greensboro, North Carolina, in 1953. She received her stenographic diploma from Russell Commercial School in 1957. She worked for the superintendent of Guilford County Color Schools in her younger years, and she continued her career endeavors, which led her to New Jersey, where she married her beloved husband, Jesse Leach, in 1958. Her husband encouraged her to continue her education, which she received a degree of Associates of Arts in 1974 from Burlington County College, located in Pemberton, New Jersey, and a bachelor's degree in business management in 1983 from Rider College, located in Trenton, New Jersey. She retired in 1989 from working with the Veteran Administration and Social Security Administration for 30 years of government service. Ruby has been working with genealogy, which she dearly loves, since the early 1970s. She has been strategic in finding our families and their lineage. Her work has led her to receive many awards and recognitions for the African American and free people of color families here in the Guilford County and Jamestown, North Carolina area. Ruby family descendants are of the Sapps, Crews, Fullers, located here in Jamestown, North Carolina, and the area of Sapptown, which is a small area located on the outer limit of Jamestown. Just so you all know, that's where the Weavers were settled in when they were here. She presently lives in Greensboro, North Carolina. Ms. Heather Marshall. Heather Marshall is a dynamic creative force, almost effortlessly blending artistry, leadership, and business acumen to leave an undeniable mark across multiple industries. A 20-year Air Force veteran and lifetime cultural influencer, she is a renowned brand strategist, writer, poet, and consultant with a deep commitment to mentorship, philanthropy, and authenticity. Heather's expertise spans across the areas of brand development, resilience, and genealogy. She has played a pivotal role in her family historical research and God-given ability to tether past to present for future. Her personal dedication has lent itself to contribution to major entertainment projects, as well as providing management consultation and strategic planning for many high-profile events along the East Coast, Midwest, and the southern regions of the United States and abroad. A woman, a mother, daughter, and granddaughter, Heather Marshall is carrying the baton to further the legacy set forth by her ancestors. Heather is a Pettiford Weaver descendant whose family migrated north to Indiana and Ohio area. She presently lives in Louisville, Kentucky. Each of these three individuals will give a quick 10-minute briefing about their topic of expertise. From there, the questions and answers from you, the audience, will be allowed. We ask you to raise your hands, and when you are allowed to speak, to please give your name, who you are, and or who you are representing. We ask for your questions to be stated quickly and to the point to give time to allow others to be able to ask their questions as well. For any family members or local residents who would like to make a quick statement on the topic of discussion, you are more than welcome to do so, but please allow your statement to be very brief as well, out of respect for time. For any questions to be asked directly to Dr. Priest, we ask for you to ask after the fireside chat. There will be a table downstairs for open discussion once this presentation ends. We will start with open discussion now. So, are there any questions? Yeah. Okay. All right. Hold on. Before we do that, I am so sorry. I'm going to have each one of you guys tell a little bit brief background about you. So, Forrest, we can start with you. I apologize.
Thank you. The first thing I was going to say is, can you all hear me? I'm Forrest Hazel. I'm the tribal historian for the Occaneechi Indian tribe in Alamance County. And I've been doing that for about 40 years now, so I'll try to be brief. I originally came from Delaware, Eastern Shore of Maryland, that area. In '74, when I attended school at UNC Chapel Hill. And in the process of going to school there, I started meeting people from other Indian communities in North Carolina. And I got to know them. Some of my people were connected with what's called the Nanticoke Indian community of Delaware. But I got to start knowing the Indian people in North Carolina. And in the community where I live in Mebane, there were a number of people of Indian descent, but they didn't know much about their own tribe. And as I went through and got a degree in anthropology, I said, well, maybe I can help you and we can kind of put the history together and work on state recognition for the tribe. So I'm still working on that. They did get state recognition in 2021 after about 11 years working on it, going through the process with the state. While I was doing that, I also worked on history of many of the other tribes in North Carolina. There are 8 that are recognized by the state today. And all the way from the eastern band of the Cherokee to the Meherrin Indians down near the coast. So I've been kind of working on that for the past few years. And I was asked to come today because at one point doing the research for the Occaneechi, I came across a reference to a court case from Ohio from about 1840 that was called Jeffries versus Ankeny. And I looked at it and I said, well, this is a Jeffries who goes to court because there was some argument over what school he was supposed to go to. And I read about it, and it had to do with his being of Indian ancestry. And I said, well, that's in Ohio, so that's got nothing to do with us right And then I finally realized about 2 years later that this fellow had come from North Carolina and settled in Ohio in the 1830s. And I said, maybe it does have something that I ought to look at. So I spent quite a bit of time out in Ohio. And from there in Indiana and Michigan and throughout the Midwest, where a lot of people from North Carolina had gone to settle. Wherever they went, they faced a dilemma of how they were going to be identified socially. Were they going to be black or Indian or white or whatever. All of them had different ways of dealing with it, and so I spent a little time out in the Midwest kind of looking at how people responded to the social conditions out there. I'm not going to go over all of these today unless you ask me specifically about them, but there were probably a dozen cases between 1840 and 1880 where Jeffreyses or their relatives went to court to see how they were going to be classified by the social system. In most of the cases, they were found to be of Indian descent and were then classified that way. So it's a long story. I'm probably happier to talk about it than most folks are to listen to it. But if you have any questions about how that sort of thing went, not just with the Jeffreyses, but there a lot of families that went from the South to the Midwest had to deal with their social status out there. So I think it's interesting. My wife always thought it was like watching paint dry. We'll deal with that. Thank you for letting me be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruby Sapp Leach. I will be sharing with you the story of African American and free people of color families that settled in Jamestown before and after the Civil War. As they settled, they formed communities close to each other, which was a means of survival. Some of these communities' names were Sacktown, Florence, Zion Hill, and many others. These communities have made many contributions to this area, such as farmers, teachers, preachers, established churches, schools, brick masons, and landscaping, doctors and nurses, and such more. Our families, with their professions, were able to become landowners and entrepreneurs. One of our known family members was Meseret Martin. In 1866, she was taken in and raised by the Mendenhall family. Judith was Richard and Mary Mendenhall's daughter. Judith Mendenhall started a school for the African Americans and free people of color families. The Quakers in Jamestown were very active and supported it in assisting us in establishing our communities. The present day High Point City Lake Park is one of the areas of location of where our families were located. Presently, still stand the little red brick building, which had many uses and historical activities. This building was the topic of the abolishment of slavery. Later on, it was used at the Primitive Baptist Church, the Freeman School, and the Active School for Kids of Color. This picture that you see it up front near the entrance, these are the descendants of our family. We have established churches in the area that presently remain to this day, such as the Raleigh's Crossroad United Methodist Church, the Reynolds Chapel Baptist Church, the Persimmon Grove AME Church, the Collin Grove United Methodist Church, the Bass Chapel United Methodist Church, Turner's Chapel, and Cedar Phelps United Methodist Church, also Mount Table United Methodist Church. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Heather Marshall. I am an 8th generation descendant of who you seen earlier. Oh, he's still there. Both of them, actually. John Milton Pettiford and Henry Weaver. Their lines came to Weaver and established Weaver, and my family also, I'm a representative of one of the bloodlines that came to Weaver seeking freedom. We also, they were granted their freedom, as Dr. Priest explained. Matthew Bex Sr. was my great-great-great-grandfather, and he went on a campaign for 2 years, actually, and collected $1,000 worth of gold, which got kicked off by Governor Horace Greeley in New York, who started the Chronicle, or the New York Tribune, excuse me, and that's how he made his way to Weaver. And with the Bex family, they brought an equine element. They were all farmers, as everybody knows, but the thing that fortified, I think, Weaver beyond just a collection of abolitionists and Quakers and everybody working together was, once they got there, if they weren't already family, they became family. My grandmother, Opha Dolores Beck, she did the diligent, dedicated work to trace every single line that existed in Weaver and how they intermarried, which is astounding to see, like, the way that they shaped the landscape of US history, to now see it from this perspective, full circle, coming here and being in Jamestown has been remarkable for me. It's blown my mind the whole way through, but being here these last few days, connecting with Ruby and hearing her story and seeing, like, I'm the product of who came from here, who started here. I picked up my grandmother's research in 2019 when she passed away, and I've been carrying it forward ever since. So there's a lot, like way more that could ever be corralled here, even with all the experts available. There's just so much history. And Weaver was really a reservoir of resilience and family and persistence, and most importantly, resistance. Even if it was quietly done, they were still strategic, and they never stopped moving forward to advance the anti-slavery movement, which we're still trying to advance today. In the climate of the United States today, you know, it seems as though we're still grappling with a lot of the same factors that were resisting, you know, forward progression and equality and all of those things. But Weaver, to me, I was a little girl growing up in Marion before I moved. I was a military girl, and it's always like home to go back there every year for the reunions. Now we're on our 106th family reunion this year, and it always feels the same. It always feels the same. But I was saying to Dr. Priest last night, coming here is the first time I've ever felt similar to being at Weaver. And thank you for having me. I'm
So now we'll start the Fireside Chat. We have about 20 minutes that you guys can ask questions to all of them. Just so you all have a little background also, when I started doing the research, when I have reached out to Forest, my grandmother and them used to go to Pleasant Grove at least once a month. They would sometimes go to the revivals there, especially when my grandma used to live there with my Aunt Grace. They would head down there. So when I started doing some digging, I knew something wasn't quite right, couldn't put my finger on it. So I had reached out to Forrest and he assisted me. He was like, you need to go towards Hollister. He said, that's where your folks look like they're coming from. And so I started doing digging out that direction and started connecting everyone. And as my mother I was grouping the families together. The Pettifords kept popping up, and I'm like, who are these Pettifords? And at that time, my mom was still living, and I remember I was in my bedroom. I was like, Mom, I said, who are the Pettifords? And she's like, I don't know who they are, but I bet you Ruby does. And I was like, how does she know about the Pettifords? Y'all don't ever talk about them. So I called Ruby, and she's like, why don't you come by the house? And I was like, okay. so then I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to take a day, go down there. So I went by her house, and she had this thick book, about that thick, about the Pettifords and the Weavers. And she says, is this who you're talking about? And I said, yes. And then she was like, well, they all went up north. I said, well, that's where they are. She's like, what do you mean that's where they are? I said, I found them. And so that's where it took off. Okay, so I'm gonna let you all, definitely don't hesitate to ask questions, and anything that pops in your head, regardless of how silly it may seem, ask, because this is probably one of the few chances you'll be able to do that. Any questions?
Yes, you want me to come up or you?
No,
You hear me?
just talk.
Yeah, my name is John Joyner, and my question is to Forrest. Doing your research, did you find any connection to the so-called Indians, to the free colors that were now enslaved?
How long have you got?
All day.
Well, I'll try to answer that briefly. I mean, in many communities throughout the South, what we find is that as you get different groups of people together, black, white, Indian, people tended to mix as they do everywhere. And, you know, what we found was that almost everywhere, people that are, now for example, we could go back to my community, and there are people that look whiter than me, but if you call them anything but a black person, they'll get mad at you. So what we find is people have mixed for over 300 years now. And it varies from place to place how people identify themselves. You have some people that look very Indian, that will say they're white or black. People have mixed, and it depends on how you're raised, I guess, and how you're taught to think of yourselves. And even within families, you will find different people will identify different ways. So, yeah, there's a very close connection. In fact, you know, most of the families in the Indian communities here in North Carolina today are gonna have people that well, for example, in our community, we had a bunch of people that in the 40s and 50s moved up around Fort Wayne, Indiana. And for a long time, they they would come home and visit, but they didn't want people from here visiting them, because up there they were identified as white. And if you went up there, you had to be of a certain appearance. Now, most of them have gotten over that now, which is probably what they should have done to begin with, but, so there's a real strong connection between people of color and Indians, and a lot more whites than what we know about too, so I could talk about that all day.
Yeah, Steve, I just want to follow up on it. The reason I asked you that, Forrest, is because my grandmother was a Cherokee. But on her records, they have color, so I just was wondering if you had to, that's why I asked you that question.
Well, I'll answer that by saying this. In the early 1900s, the government put together what was called the Guillen-Miller Roll of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee. And if you read through the thousands of applications of that, and these were applications where people could get money if they could prove that they really were Cherokee. There were just probably more people that didn't make a connection than what did. And generally, they would start off by saying something like, well, my grandmother was a colored woman from Guilford County, but she was never a slave. And then they would give some biography. Eventually, they'd be turned down. Almost none of the people that couldn't actually prove a Cherokee ancestry got any money at all. But it was clear, I think, from doing that again, that's around 1900. People remembered. I don't think most of them were trying to tell a story and get money, but I think that by this point, they had lost really the knowledge of what the original tribe was. And everybody just recognized Cherokee as an Indian tribe and used that. A lot of the government agents would write things on the application saying, this applicant shows the Indian blood, as does his brother and aunt who are with him, but it can't be proven. So,
Just to fill in a little bit about what Forrest has stated about that, and what I've learned also is that people Cherokee's probably one of the main tribes that people know of, but that's not the only tribe here in North Carolina. There's many, some have not even been discovered. The ones that are here is total 8, correct? And with those, they base it off of your genealogy lines, connections. But with those genealogy lines, they're still learning and still seeing where the migration patterns are occurring. Like they're starting to see that some of them actually came here to Guilford County and Piedmont, and they're understanding the knowledge of why. But when it comes to being Native, it's more of a cultural thing at this point than it is an ethnicity thing. I would say, just because depending on how you're raised inside your home, and there's nothing, everybody embraces each other equally and evenly. That's what I've learned from watching the family members that I have recently met. Everybody's been very warming and understanding, and if it wasn't for them, I would not have found them. So it was because of that. And so I'm grateful for that. And so like I said, everybody's being open, and many of them couldn't come today, but they know that it's getting recorded. So they're excited about watching it. But yeah, so any more questions?
I'm Janice also, and I live in the Inez community in Warrenton, and that's where the Palawa and the Saponi Indians live. We went to school with them, and like I said, they're all mixed, families are mixed, that type thing. But I was wondering about the, the saying that you could pay $5 to become an Indian, or vice versa, or something like that. And also there's a, I think it's a Tuscaloosa?
Tuscarora.
Yes, in that area, what do you call it, not a reservation area. Do you know
Indian
anything
Woods.
about that?
Her Indian Woods? That's
Well,
the
it's
name
called
of it, yeah.
Tuscaloosa, I think.
It's the Tuscarora Reservation.
Tuscarora, yes, but it's empty. I rode through there, it's just empty. I just wanted to say something about that.
Well, the old Tuscarora Reservation was mostly down in the, what they call the Indian Woods section of Bertie County. But that's been, and I have not been there myself. I'm told that other Indian people have been down there, and they said there's still some people down there that look like they're of Indian blood. And I have met some people from down there that claimed Indian blood. And I'm not gonna be able to call his name right now, but there was a professor at Central, I believe. Smallwood, Dr. Smallwood, he in part descended from the Tuscarora families. Now, as far as the Hollowas talking about paying $5 to become an Indian, I suspect that where that came from was back about 1910, when I just mentioned the Guillen Miller Commission that was identifying Cherokee descendants. What they would do in some places, and this was all over the country, they would say, look, you know, for $5 or whatever it may have been in your local area, there's a form I can fill out, and you'll be able to be identified as a Cherokee Indian, and you'll get a bunch of money back. And all you had to do is pay me $5 to fill the form out. And unfortunately, a lot of people did that, and of course, there were some communities where you would see hundreds of people that would pay an attorney $2 or $3 or $5, and of course they wouldn't get a thing. I think the attorneys knew they weren't going to get a thing, but they didn't mind charging for it. So. Did that answer your
Yes,
question?
thank you.
Yes.
Got a bit of a surprise. I'm from Bertie County. Grew up attending Indian Woods Missionary Baptist Church. I had my great grandma, we referred to her as Grandma Pearl, and she had many physical characteristics that would lend to the fact that she was, you know, of a tribe. And it wasn't until after she passed that people started discussing that, what tribe should be from. But I do recall, and I'll finish with this, when I was growing up there was a place called a Hosky in Winton, and that's where we're seeing the majority of the people who had the appearance that would make you think they were descended of Native Americans were located, not so much in Bertie.
Well, the area he's talking about, that you're talking about, Winton and Hosky, Little California, communities like that, that's in Hertford County, and those people today are recognized by the state as Meherrin Indians. And a lot of them look very Indian. Some look like me. I mean, it's a wide range, but, and they probably have a great deal of Tuscarora ancestry, but they've gone in for identification as Meherrin Indians, because that's where the Meharrin Reservation was just above Bertie County and Hereford County. So, you can, I mean, I've been working on the history just of one little community for close to 40 years, and we still haven't covered all of it. So there's still a lot out there to try to figure out. And a lot of the material has just been, it's gone. I mean, the Hereford County Courthouse burned, I think, twice. So it's a lot of stuff gone right there.
Do you all have any, yes,
I have a question for the two women in the center. My name is Janata, and you had said that your family reunion had been going on for 106 years, and I just think that it's amazing that you guys have this family legacy, everybody in the room, and with this project that's been going on for so long, and with meeting this family member in Jamestown, I just wanna know if this has been encouraging to you guys, and if you guys have any plans on, keeping up the longevity of, basically, has this been invigorating for you guys to keep this going in your family? Have you figured out a way, or has it been encouraging to keep it going for even longer in your family? Has it been empowering for you guys to come down in Jamestown and keep motivated, your family?
Absolutely. We were just talking, one of my other cousins, Chrissy, who's here, about, this is a first for us finding this out. I've been under my grandmother's tutelage all of my life until she passed, and even since she's passed, I'm still under her tutelage by the leading, of the Holy Spirit. And yes, it is incredibly invigorating. So for us to come to this knowledge and piece it together, it's been like a puzzle, a tapestry that I've been getting bits and pieces of my entire life. And now it's like, oh my gosh, this connects to this connects to that. We're on a train, guys. We're rolling. We've got these cars and we are on the track. So yes, we are gonna go forward with infusing this into the reunions. The reunions are a staple. That was a mandate back in 1919 that Joseph and Martha requested of their 18 children to come back at least once a year. And it coincidentally falls most times on my birthday weekend, which is also awesome. The third Sunday in August in Weber. It was a big deal for my grandmother to want to bring the North Carolina families and the Indiana families together, to have like a big reunion of some kind. And that was a dream back in the 90s. I remember, people talking about that. But now it's like, we can actually do this. Like, we can really do this in a way that everybody can be included, not just between North Carolina and Indiana, but coast to coast. And all of the Weavers, Pettifords, and Becks, even, internationally. I think this family story is a big deal for our family, but for history purposes, period, within curriculums, within communities. It's a story that can be told in a myriad of ways, and we want to tell them it all. So, yes.
I was going to say that DNA did this, because we knew they were up there, but we just didn't know where. Cousin David, you said it best. So you said, yeah, and you're like, we knew they were up there, but we just didn't know where they were. and that's true. That they knew, even Ruby, they knew y'all were up there, but we just didn't know where they were. But it had a lot to do with being silent, because during that time period, what was transpiring, especially with the abolitionist movement, you couldn't tell people what you were doing and why. Because even our family here had a lot to do with the Underground Railroad here in this district. And so you heard the stories, but you know, it was a lot of silence, and we had to learn how to keep quiet. And so because of that, we didn't know where they were. You know, we didn't supposed to know where they went. Okay, so you have to think about that, and because this whole thing was a moving project that they had to do in order to get this movement going, to safely travel the slaves when they were going northward. We didn't need to know where they went. Okay, all right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick statement. I want to thank Ruby Sapp for finding the records. My grandfather buying land in Jamestown and being on the Jamestown School Board for 10 years. She found the records and turned them over to me, and thank you, Ruby.
Yes, ma'am.
You have a question.
This is not related particularly, but I was seated at the lunch counter in Woolworths in Greensboro when the Greensboro 5 came in, and the manager came and asked us to please get up and leave so there would be no disturbance. And there was not. They were just as nice as they could be. They just waited until we got up and left. But it was just a historic moment.
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you. This has been truly amazing. Yes, cousin.
Bobby, me and my wife both stay in Hollister, have roots in and around the whole area. My question is, how does the Pettiford and Weaver line connect to our area? Because on my mother's side, you know, we have Weaver, and you know, the Richardson connects to the Pettiford somehow. So
I can answer parts of that. Most of that's coming from through marriage. Just like Dudley's family, he has an aunt that married a Pettiford. So that's how they're interconnected. But then also the interconnection goes into the Bass line, which is like in the 1700s. So these lines can trace themselves back into like the 1750s, believe it or not. And so, but with the Richardsons and the Lynch, they intermarried when they started migrating down from that Suffolk, Virginia area and moved down to Hollister, and then when things weren't safe, they started moving past into Granville, and then when Granville wasn't safe, they ended up in Guilford. So but that's how it was just marriages that intermarried. Yes, Gwen.
I was just gonna add that, please right into what I was gonna mention a second ago. Just wanna tie in together some of this. You know, the Weaver community is one that is blessed to have such amazing documentation. And that's what's so beautiful about this, is we can actually see it. There's these other threads for other communities that connect, and they're also, as you were saying, DNA research shows they're all interconnected. A lot of times in Virginia in the 1700s and 1600s, these families coming into North Carolina, intermarrying, moving, and then up into Indiana. And those maps up there, you have the star on Weaver. I'm not familiar with all those, but I can see now just below it is the Roberts community. The Roberts community was settled by people coming from Northampton County, North Carolina, right there between Hertford and Halifax and Warren. So these other communities also in that Indiana area also have North Carolina connections, likely intersecting, if not directly, within Indiana, sometimes 200, 300 years earlier, with all these blending of families who've had their histories have to be hidden for so long.
And what she's saying is correct, because it's just like with the Richardsons, my highest matches, this is me being nerdy again, but my highest matches, or just like with the Pettifords, I found them going into Kentucky and into Canada. So that already indicated to me that was another line that was doing the exact same thing. And so like Dudley is actually having me to go backwards, just like how I had to do with you guys, to see where they landed. And 9 times out of 10, it wouldn't be surprised they came here. Emmett Pettiford and them lived as neighbors with the Mendenhalls, which is where my great-great-grandmother was raised by them, so it was interconnected. These families were related to each other. And that's how all of this correlation of their DNA got started. If it wasn't for Ruby and even Aunt Ida, my great Aunt Ida is like in her 90s. Once they're gone, it's over. So I just want to let you know there's only 2 people left, y'all. So if they were not living while I was trying to do this, this would not have happened. Okay, so I want you to really seriously think about that, because they knew we were here, but they didn't know, they actually thought we had died out. They didn't even know who we were, okay? So that's why it's important for people to stop gatekeeping information. And I'm putting that out there for certain people, because what's happening is when you do that, what happens, situations like this does not happen and you can't find people. So that stuff has to stop. And I'm putting that out there cold-heartedly because it's not appreciated, okay? Because what's happening at this point, moving forward, is that now we're gonna interconnect it back to them. And now, because we know where the merger is, they're restarting some parts of the reunion in a different formality. And this is not the only line that's doing that. And so there's much more of the history that's getting pulled out for these historians to be driving 10 hours away to do this. This is a pretty big deal. Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, because I want to say thank you very much to the panel and to you, Tanya. So what's the next step? What are we gonna do next? Is it gonna be a book?
I don't know. We were talking about that. This is Christy. She's the president of the Pettiford Weaver for Indiana. We were talking about that last night. And so we'll find out. That's something, and even with our Fuller line, we used to have our reunions. We used to take those at City Lake Park, and Tony Fuller would tell me how they would sing, and they would go to the graveyard and put flowers. And that graveyard was the symbolism of us, this family. But I did not know who they were. Okay? Yes.
Ruby has mentioned something about attempting to get a marker for the Sapp family. Do you know any more about
Yes,
that?
yes. It's going to be for. It's going to probably be multiple markers, not just one. One of them we're going to try to aim for is the City Lake Park, since these families lived across the street there. So that will be one of the first ones we get, and then after that we're going to try to aim for other areas throughout Jamestown to interconnect, because again, these Jamestown is connected to a lot of these townships that are up here, and they are getting rediscovered because of the DNA. All right, so yeah.
My name is Sean Rogers. I'm the director of Mendenhall Home Place of Historic Jamestown Society, and I grew up in Terre Haute, Indiana, so I'm very much familiar with the Burnett and Lost Creek settlements. And Lost Creek settlement, a lot of the people there, the families, they've done a great job of documenting their history and also allowing for future input and sharing and networking. They have a wonderful website. It's outdated by today's standards, but it's very active and it's very useful. I think that would be a wonderful tool for, in particular, sharing the stories, sharing the information, while also encouraging others to participate, share data, information, photos, even oral history, recordings and things of that sort.
And we're talking about Weaver, but also these generational lines, genealogy lines are connecting to these other locations like Lost Creek, Robinson, I see them. And interesting enough, Norma knows who these people are. Yes.
Yeah, like Lost Creek, for example, in many cases, you're talking about the same families, they just mainly came from Granville.
Yes.
Before they came here.
I'm gonna do you in the orange and you in the green.
Me?
Uh-huh.
I just want to, recognize my friend Ruby. Because I'm much younger than Ruby. And we've been friends for many, many, many years. And ever since I've known her, she has been breathing, doing ancestry research. And I'm just so thankful to God that her work has been recognized. Because I see her, she's always breathing her mat. She's always in front of that mat. And for years and years and years, she's always been doing that research. And to see it culminate to the point right now, to see how important it is that we keep this type of thing going on, that we do the research, we keep the records. And I just want to thank you. Because you have and I mean, she loves it. She loves it. And I always used to say, well, really, who's going to carry this on? Who's going to carry it? Where are you going to leave it? Give it to the museum. But she loves this work. I would come to her house and her office is always full of papers. You call her early in the morning, what you doing? I'm on the mat. And she's what?
91.
91. And she's been doing this for me, over
50 years.
Yes. I'm trying to be cautious, but she loves it. And I just thank you for what you have contributed to what's going on here and for being an example of, because we take this stuff for granted. And we can't, as she said, there's only 2 left for her. And so for us, we have to do it to keep our family legacy alive. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's take one more.
My name is Lindsay Cox. I'm not related to any of you fine folks. I'm here. This is my sort of cousin, my husband's cousin. We found out about each other through a similar project, the Whitehall family, which I know we have all of. But anyway, my question is for Miss Ruby. I can tell that you are extremely proud of your family history. I just want to say thank you for that, because there's not a lot of folks like you in my life personally. I didn't have the treasure of someone like you in my family telling stories. So I thought I would just ask you, what is something that you're most proud of from your family, or something that's been the most exciting for you in your research? I don't know, just tell us something else about your family, because I want to hear it.
I am like, I could talk about my family all day long, all night long. But what I'm extremely interested in, my family back in the 1800s, as I say, what they have done for Jamestown, growing up in Jamestown, they have become doctors, and they have owned lots and lots of land. All that new development, I look over there now that's going on, you probably pass Mackey Road. That was owned by my great grandfather, great uncles. When I first came back to here from New Jersey, I was in New Jersey 61 years. And one day I saw a little pamphlet, passed around, and it says, there'll be a genealogy held on the, right there at the library there in Jamestown. It was 4 little tents they had set up out there. So I went, they said, well, okay, it'll be from 10 until 2. And I told my niece, I said, you have to get me over there. I have to see, I have to go to this genealogy setup. So when I got over there, I met Julia, the city over there. And I talked to Julia a long time, and then there was a Gilbert genealogy group, and then there was somebody from the library, and then when I got to Sean, I stayed with Sean the whole day. We just talked. So, the train was coming down the track, and I said, Sean, I said, my people laid some of those tracks. And then I told him the story of how, the South Town, you know, because my grandfathers and all of them was from South Town. And I told Sean, I said, Sean, I said, do you know that they put up a sign saying South Road at Mackey, you know, a long time ago. And I said, when I came back, McCabe, they took the sign down saying South Road and put McCabe on the road. I said, my people, we're here. This is where they live. This is where they grew up. This is where they went to school back then. And I started crying. And I was falling behind Sean. He's trying to get him, you know, pack up his school stuff, you know, it's 2 o'clock. He's trying to pack. Sean, and you know, this and that. So Sean said, well, Ruby, I'll look into it for you. So I've been around Sean ever since. So we go to graveyards. Sean, I volunteer on Tuesdays out there in that big red barn, and we clean tools, we do different things out there. So I wish that my family would continue to keep it up, and I told I'm so proud of Tanya, the work that she's doing. And I said, Tanya, if I pass on, you have to take it over.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this completes the second portion of our presentation. I would like to personally thank Dr. Kirsten Priest for her wonderful presentation, Mr. Forrest Hazel, Ms. Ruby Sapp Leach, Ms. Heather Marshall for the open forum discussion about our families here in the state of North Carolina and Indiana. I want to give special acknowledgement to Councilwoman Ms. Pam Burgess for her support on this endeavor. And may I please add that she is the first Black councilwoman for Jamestown, North Carolina. Dr. Sarah Dustin, the head department professor at Guilford College. My cousin, Ms. Norma Johnson from Indiana. Norma, yes, Norma. If it wasn't for you and cousin Ruby, all of this would not have happened. Both Ruby Sapp Leach here in North Carolina and Norma Johnson in Indiana are our family genealogists, and we are truly grateful to both of them. Special recognition to our Guilford County Sheriff, Sheriff Danny Rogers, who is the first Black sheriff for Guilford County. Mr. Sean Rogers, the Mendenhall curator for the Mendenhall Home Place here in Jamestown. The Historic Jamestown Society. Miss Christy Jones, she is, raise your hand, girl. She is a Pettiford Weaver descendant, and she is the family reunion president for Marion, Indiana. And I'm so grateful for both you and Heather coming down. And we also have another Weaver descendant that's over here in the corner, but came all the way from Atlanta. Stand up, wave your hand, and say hello. And special appreciation to relatives Dudley Lynch, T.J. Gills, John Silver, and a few others, my cousin Bobby over there as well, for assisting me on helping me to find out the extended families and reuniting us back together. And special thank you for donations of refreshments by our local Jamestown bakery, Cakes by Bees Blue House Bakery. This project was a 3-year project hobby that I had been working on, gluing the pieces together for research, which I had found cousin Norma Johnson from Indiana through Ancestry.com, who was doing the exact same thing as my cousin Ruby Leach here. With their research and me being able to tie the story of Jamestown, North Carolina and Marion, Indiana together, the story was able to quickly unfold. That's why this happened so quickly. But believe it or not, this was 50 years, the research that you're seeing. Okay? It was just putting two ends of the dot, mixing it together. We would like to thank the High Point Museum, Ms. Edith Bradley, the museum director, and Ms. Sarah Blanchett, the curator of education, for giving us the opportunity and the space to share our story here today. I want to personally thank my late mother, Ms. Carolyn Bowman, and my father, Mr. Nathaniel Bowman, for your love and support as I was doing this research and helping to guide me through this journey. Also, and to my family here in High Point and Jamestown, North Carolina, and to my Pettiford family in Ohio and Indiana, I love you all so much. And I thank you so much for supporting me as I was trying to find you all. Before our closing remarks, Councilwoman Pam Burgess, please come up, and Dr. Kirsten, please come up as well.
Dr. Priest, I'm not one for lost words, but I am today. But I want to say thank you so much for your hard work, your dedication, and just the love that you share to these families. And it has just been absolutely wonderful. So on behalf of the families and the town of Jamestown, please accept this as a token of our appreciation. Through this journey, I met LaTanya, and she's become like my sister. But we have spent so much time together, and she's spent time acknowledging everyone else. And I just want to acknowledge her because this young lady has the journey has really been touching. And through it all, I feel like look, you've got family, but I'm going to adopt family. And Miss Ruby has just, it's just been a blessing through all of it. So thank you for everything that you've done.
We now have a quick closing remark from Sheriff Danny Rogers, and from there we ask for you to mingle and to take a look around at the museum. You're more than welcome to take pictures, and once closing remarks are completed by the sheriff, we ask you to please head downstairs. There's more artifacts to the artifacts room for a quick mini refreshment. Yes. No flash photography downstairs because of the artifacts. Something about some microbial something the light. No flash photography. All right, here you go.
Good afternoon. A wealth of knowledge has been spread upon in this room amongst the people that have been sitting here. Two families that have led and that will lead to the connect of many other families from North Carolina or Jamestown. I would like for you to take this opportunity, take it home with you, and as you sit around thinking about those things that you have heard, you wondered about, thought about, you just didn't quite understand. Just imagine the people that were there and where and how you yourself have a connect. That's just real talk. When I think about Jamestown, just that one little piece, Jamestown, the City Lake Park, not the whole Jamestown, but the Jamestown and City Lake Park of Jamestown. As a little boy, I thought about the history piece of it coming through. Had no idea about Ms. Ruby. I had no idea about the Weavers, no idea about anybody. Just coming through Jamestown as we were brought through, riding in the car. Never saw many blacks. Never saw many Native Americans. Saw many whites sitting on the porches, many whites walking through the stores. But no one ever took time out to tell me that we also existed in Jamestown. As the sheriff of Guilford County, I'd like to thank you all for coming out and supporting this great opportunity, this great project that's been going on for 5 years, I think I heard you say. Great stuff. Going on for a long time. Push it on, spread it on. The baton has been passed on to you, Latanya. So you have to keep it up. Those of you all that are connected with her or may not be connected, get connected and help keep the information or the power of knowledge become stronger and more in action the way that we need to have it. Thank you, God bless you, take care of yourself.
Thank you, everyone. You can go downstairs and there are some goodies down there for you.